the ones who seek justice. Hello and welcome to the Nen Show podcast. I am your host, Craftsdorf, here yet again with a new series, and here with me is my co-host, Mathwiz. Say hello, Mathwiz.
We just gotta get through this, and then it's Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter.
Yes.
We're in the. I don't know. I don't remember how I was gonna finish
a 9-episode stretch. A 9-episode stretch of a 60 volume manga. We're almost there, apparently. All right. Yeah. Fairy Tail. We're here finally at last. So if you are unfamiliar with the Nen Show, how we do it is at the start of every series, we go over our personal histories, which will also cover, how far the spoilers will go. And then we also usually read comments from the previous episode, but we start as a blank slate with every series just to, on one hand, it does kind of limit the need for continuity, but at the same time, it's like we do reference that, we're going to be mentioning probably especially Rave and One Piece a lot, because I have a personal history with both One Piece and Fairy Tail, and Rave is Hiro Mashima's previous work. This is the first time we're reading a second series by the same person, and Mashima loves to let you know, doesn't he, Mathwiz? So you don't have a particularly for any real history with Fairy Tail?
No, this is pretty much going to be, I think, the biggest, gap in experience with the material that we're ever going to have on the Nen Show, because obviously I know nothing, except, I remember I had watched the tirade way back, and most of that has, left my memory, but
good.
I don't know, there might be some vague things that resurface.
Yes, so, because which is understood, because, you might remember, little points in here and there, but, it was a while ago, because, yes, I have a much deeper history with Fairy Tail. I was just telling Mathwiz before the recording that, the name of my first video, it was, Bleach Piece, because Mathwiz mentioned that Loki looks a little like Ichigo when he's in color because of the orange hair, and and people were saying that on 4chan, because of that, and, they're also seeing the One Piece similarities, so it's Bleach Piece, and that was shit I remember from when Fairy Tail started 11 years ago. I think I caught up somewhere during the next arc, which is going to be the first one of the next reading. So I dropped it a couple times, but I did read a lot of Fairy Tail as it was going. I liked it in high school. I remember after the Duke Everlue Daybreak arc, I just remember reading that ending and just feeling really satisfied. Oh yeah, this is a good manga. And then eventually, my opinion did start to shift towards the negative. Really, it started in the arc after the next one, which we will also be covering next time. Then the arc after that, or there was another arc in between, maybe. That's when my perception of Fairy Tail just broke, and I started, minor spoilers, it was the Eration Seis arc, which is a name Mathwiz is familiar with since we've read Rave. And after that, my opinion just started getting more and more negative, to the point that, partway through my channel, I did the overly long tirade on Fairy Tail, in which I, reread the series, kind of. It was really stupid, because I, caught up, from where I dropped it, because I dropped it for a good while, over a year, and then I reread it, but I didn't reread the last arc. So, the fact that I, got a bunch of shit wrong was understandable, but stupid of me, and even rereading it now, I'm like, oh yeah, I was hella wrong on a bunch of shit. Because, I don't really agree with, there was one thing in the tirade from this reading I might still agree with, but, most of it, even just, the method of analysis, even if it does happen to match my personal feelings, I don't agree with it anymore, and I'm already planning to unlist a lot of old videos, probably including most, if not all, of the tirade. I might do, some kind of, video on the tirade or about Fairy Tail in the future, so, but it's, because, rereading it, I'm enjoying it more. I'd say right now it's, a light 5, which is a vast improvement over the 1 out of 10 it used to be. I enjoyed this reading. I'm worried about where it's gonna go from here, but right now I'm yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, so basically, also, I'm not sure why I said this is going to be the biggest gap in, like, experience, because you have a similar experience with One Piece, only more positive, so I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through it multiple times. That's, like, the closest gap we've had in experience is Naruto, but even then, we were both kind of, like, lost in a few regards. So yeah, we were still definitely the closest there. Bleach, we were also pretty close because we had none. Rave and One Piece, but though, yeah, I'd say One Piece is the biggest gap because you didn't know very much at all, and I knew so much. So with Fairy Tail, I'm like, I mean, in both cases, rereading One Piece and Fairy Tail, I'm finding new shit. So I'd say it's roughly the same gap as One Piece, even though I've read Fairy Tail less. So because I've only gone through it like twice. I think this is my third time going through it. With One Piece, it's easy like 2 to like 10 times, depending on what part of the material we're talking about. So yeah. But yeah, as far as, spoilers, I will not be spoiling past, like, I was hesitant to even name Oration Stace, and I only did so because I mentioned in the rave that they're a recurring thing in Mashima's work, so it's like, there's no surprise that they're gonna show up in Fairy Tail too. And oh wow, there's an arc centered around them, good to know. But like, I'm not gonna be spoiled, so please in the comments, there's gonna be things, don't spoil them, even if, you don't like Fairy Tail, please, like, you're gonna, I'm gonna mention, like, I don't think this comes up later or not, maybe, but, because there's one thing I really don't like in this reading, and it's, like, it's almost a little frustrating.
Or if you're going to spoil, just mark your spoilers.
Yeah, so I can read it, and then Mathers could be like, nope, yes, so that would be the ideal thing to do. You guys have been pretty good about it so far. So anyway, getting started with the reading. Oh yes, and also since you have read Rave first, it's like, because I read Rave second, like after going through Fairy Tail twice. So it's like when I saw Musica, I was like, oh my god, it's Gray. But it's like you see Gray and you're like, oh my god, it's Musica. So we have that different thing. And now that I've reread Rave, like I'm even noticing other things, but smaller stuff. But it's because he just has little cameos and stuff. But
I was gonna say in the first couple of chapters they were everywhere because it's like, oh hey, there's Griff in the top of this little panel thing. Oh hey, there's a Nakajima shirt. There's Clue.
Of course, that one was much more like in your face because he's even on the first cover spread now. Color spread now is on Lucy's shoulder or hiding behind her, kind of. I didn't notice her before. Oh man. So anyway, starting off with chapter 1, which is practically like a small arc in itself. Like honestly, this is probably Mashima's best like setup chapter, I think, because he didn't overdo it with the exposition. He let the characters do the talking, And I like that because usually he just like, here's a bunch of exposition on what the setting is, like because I've read all of his one shots and stuff, and they are all like that. But this was like he just like kind of toned it back a bit for this, and I was like, whoa, okay. Yeah.
That was like when you had me read Monster Soul, and that was like all he did, and it was such a boring read.
Oh right, Monster Soul. Do you want to talk about Monster Soul a little first?
It was not. I don't recommend it to anyone.
No.
I thought it was more boring than Zombie Powder, which says
it was. I thought it was like kind of painful. Like here I am, like saying, "Oh yeah, Fairy Tail I appreciate way more than I did before." Monster Soul still sucks. Because it's like it was trying to do some things, but it's I feel like he either deliberately limited himself to two. I'm pretty sure he was deliberately limited to 2 volumes, but he tried to tell a story that needed way more time.
Yeah,
like it all just felt crammed in there. And like the conflicts were like, because obviously it deals with the racism, because there's like monsters and humans. Kind of, he just does that again, like he did in Rave. And it's just like. It was just so awkward to read. Like, he'd just do these, like... this happened twice, where it just, like, runs through the characters' gags. Like, oh, look, the Frankenstein, his face fell off. Oh, the mummy, she's stripping. And those, like, especially with the mummy, that was the only 2 times it happened with her in these, like, designated gag sections. And it was so just, like, why? What are you doing? Like, it was just so inorganic how they were included into the story. And, like... the conflict just begged more, like, for me, like, there was the sand golem girl, Aki, that was the main character, or someone else?
Yeah, that was the main character.
Yeah, I forget what her name is, but she, like, her family, like, they were gonna melt in the rain, but they couldn't move to safety because of the rules, and I'm like, well, is this like a societal, like, are they not allowed to move because the human society doesn't allow them to move, or is this their like inner traditions or something? Like, you know, a context like that would be important for the conflict, but it was like there was no time to really go into any of that, so they just died, and I'm like, oh, okay, okay. And
if you've got
it was just not.
If you've got like 9 chapters to tell a story, maybe don't try to tell a story that feels like it would be better served
in like 9 volumes or something like that. Like, yeah, it just it's weird that it's like Monster Soul was bad, but in the way that it was bad, I wanted more of it. I guess, if you could put it that way. I mean, maybe I want none of it, but it was yeah, it was not a good read.
See, I remember we don't normally address comments in the first episodes, but there was one last time saying like, oh, well, if Rave Master only got a 4, then there probably isn't going to be another manga on the Nen show that like gets a lower score. And so like I kind of wanted to add some context to that, because like for me, I find that the shonen formula is generally more appealing than sort of the average story. So like to be less than like a 5 out of 10, you have to do something that's kind of like, I found Rave Master to be pretty boring for most of the time. So that's why I kind of gave it a 4, because it kind of like didn't even meet my threshold for what I find to be like really interesting shonen manga, or even just like baseline interesting shonen manga, but it was close. There was like nothing, maybe not nothing, but there was rarely anything super offensive in Rave, whereas like if a story was going to get lower a score than that, it would have to like offend me. Like if you're going to take the shonen formula and also just fill it with a bunch of stuff that like makes me angry reading it. So that's why I'm thinking like, I've heard things about Fairy Tail. Maybe it could be lower, but we'll see.
Yeah, like in order to like be a bad shonen story to people who like us who do like these stories, it would have to like utterly reject everything in a way that just like completely betrays what we want out of this, what we should feel like we should get out of the story, you know? And so I don't know what it would take for it to do that. Because yeah, Rave, I was thinking the same thing myself. Is like, well, if Rave only got a 4, like what's gonna be bad? Because I could see someone who like doesn't like shonen at all. Like I can see why they might like Hunter x Hunter or One Piece and think Rave is like complete utter garbage in every way, because it's like they naturally don't like it, but they'll go read One Piece and go like, yeah, that's fine, you know, because or maybe they'll hate it too. I don't know, because it's goofy. I don't know. But it's like, depends on why, you know, because yeah, if you don't like One Piece because of the art style, that's completely fair. So yeah, it's just, yeah, that's our preference, I guess. Like, and also like, comparing to Monster Soul again, you know, longer stories have more context than just, you know, I think, you know, so with this, you know, and the ones we're specifically reading for the show are going to be longer. You know, like, we're not going to read some canceled story that only had 3 volumes, you know? We're going to, like, our minimum, I think the minimum is 10, which is at least something. So it's like there's still the chance of stories getting cut off early, but there's still going to be more there. So we might even be more disappointed when it ends than with Monster Soul, where it's like, well, I'm glad it's over. But yeah, that is true. So anyway, on to Fairy Tail, where we start off where Sieg, our boy.
I don't know. I don't know how to feel about these I actually can't think of like these self-referential things that are like in any way detrimental to the narrative of Fairy Tail. Like there aren't anywhere it feels like super intrusive. Like even the Plu thing, it's like, no, this isn't Plu from Rave Master. This is just the same character design, and then like the same with Sieg. Like it's basically the same character design, but a different character. So like
they're being transformed to fit the setting. Like instead of Sieg being on Demon Card, he's now the member of the Magic Council. You know, Plu is a celestial spirit instead of whatever the fuck Plu was in Rave, which never got answered. But yeah, I get what you mean.
So,
or they're just Easter eggs.
Yeah. They're just kind of like Easter eggs. They're just there, so you're like, if you've read Rave Master, you'll know. But if not, then they're just like, okay, these are just things.
Yeah.
Like, even then, like...
Because I had a little aside in the tirade where I just, like, because there's some things that maybe make you think, like, wait, are these in the same setting? But that doesn't make sense at all. Because, like, Rave would have happened before, but it's, like, this Magitech it's, you know, it's got a hip-hop feel, which makes it more contemporary. Whereas Fairy Tail is very much, like, this kind of medieval fantasy, you know, magic shit. So it's the settings aren't compatible at all. But yeah, were you gonna say something before I interrupted?
No, like the other thing I was just gonna point out the Griff reference again, where like there are just these two creatures like up at the top, like as another scene is playing out, like they're just very like off at the corner of the panel. So
yes,
I mean
Griff and like a lady Griff with a bow in the head.
Yeah.
So
so I'll get back to you on how I feel about all the self-referential things.
Yes.
For now, I don't really have a problem with it, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
But anyway, this first scene with Sieg, I mean, I don't mind the Sieg parts in it. Like, we'll talk about Sieg. I had a whole like, I bitched about him a lot, I'm sure. But I'll reevaluate him. But this scene also kind of sets up like the sort of ideological conflict between Fairy Tail and the Council, which also occurs pretty much throughout. Like especially in chapter 2. Where Sieg, he appreciates their freedom and he's like, oh yeah, but they do good things, and the council's like, well, yeah, but they cause trouble. So, like it especially comes up at the end of the Lullaby arc where, and of course, because they keep fucking destroying everything. So yeah, I think I'll talk about it specifically more later. I just wanted to point it out. Because I think like, I never really, because in that tirade I only really compared Fairy Tail to One Piece in like the first part, and I even said that I was going to do it more, but I decided against that. And I one thing I never got the chance to mention was that I was going, because I think the original plan was, because part 4 of the tirade was talking about like the familial themes of Fairy Tail, and where I had some issues with it. Originally that was going to be a comparison where it would basically be that part 4 of the tirade combined with Beyond Blood, and I'm glad I decided not to do that. Because Beyond Blood was good on its own and better for it. But like, I feel like some of the reasons like Fairy Tail specifically gets compared more strongly to One Piece is not like they're both goofy fantasy stories, but they're also like thematically they both deal in freedom and family. Like they're both these two, like the guild is supposed to be read as a family, like you might read a pirate crew as a family in One Piece. And so I feel like, that sort of thematic similarity gives people and of course friendship, like gives more people more grounds to compare them than they might with like Bleach and Naruto, which I mean, even though those are both like living in this sort of system and that's flawed and stuff, but overall they dealt with different ideas. So because that's just something I thought about while reading it. But anyway, we get introduced to our main two: Natsu getting sick on the train, Lucy trying to get a magic key.
Okay, so here is an idea I had that you're probably gonna think you're probably gonna get a weird reaction. Why does Mashima almost seem to frame this early stretch of the story like Lucy is the main character?
Cause it's weird, but she kind of is. Like, yeah, it's
if we're talking about like comparing this first chapter to like other shonen chapters, we focus on like Lucy going to this place and Natsu's like the outside force that like changes her life and brings her to Fairy Tail and stuff. So like Natsu is already in his environment, like he knows Fairy Tail, he knows what's going on, and like he gets the big fights. So in that sense, like he has that going for him because like the main character would get the big fights. But like Lucy gets the narration bubbles.
Yes.
There are like a number of chapters early on that are like focused. Like this first chapter in particular is like from her perspective.
Yes, well, like the scenes always seem to get like we usually like, oh, Lucy's at her house or new apartment, she's bathing or doing stuff, and then oh look, Natsu or Gray broke into her house, and that's how we get introduced to like that's how Galuna Island started. Lucy's dicking around. Natsu's like, hey, we got a mission, let's go, stuff like that. So it's Lucy is the perspective character pretty much, so. I'm not sure if I'd call her like outright more or less of a main character than Natsu, even though Natsu is like the Luffy or Naruto and like how they're like relevant they are strength wise and how they get all the biggest climactic fights. So it's definitely a bit uncommon. Yeah, I see where you're going.
So I mean, I guess I'll still wait to see like the perspective character not being the main character would be interesting. I don't know if that would go in a great direction long term, but I guess I'll find out.
Yeah, see, it's like, yes, because I have had some misgivings on Lucy in the past, but honestly, rereading that stretch, I'd say she's my favorite character in Fairy Tail right now.
I mean, she's not bad.
Well, because I don't know, it's so like. Well, because like one thing they're doing that's I'm a little bit like towards, because like we kind of talked about the sexuality in Rave a bit. and Fairy Tail is kind of exploring it in a different context because, like, Lucy is weak. She's not very strong. Like, she uses her celestial spirits and stuff. But she also tries to use her sexual... Like, in the magic shop, she's trying to use her sexuality as a weapon, you know, to lower the price of the key. And it doesn't work. It does work. She's, like, bitching about how my sex appeal is only worth 1,000 jewels. But then later with Bora, he wants to slave her because of her, like, it's like she was trying to find value in her sex appeal, and then that kind of gets used against her, sort of, where it's like, so to compare it to Julia, like, Julia has the physical strength to, like, back it up, I suppose, when a piece of shit, gets, like Bora, but whereas Lucy doesn't, I feel like her sort of, like, sex appeal as power is kind of like played with a little bit because it kind of comes up in the Everloo stuff, the Daybreak stuff too, and maybe even a bit in the Macau bit with in the ice. So yeah, it was just something that recurred a bit, and I was thinking about it. So I'll talk about it more though. I'm sure, but it's just something I was considering.
Yeah, that's something you gotta be careful with as
very
the
careful
author.
with, yes. And considering what happens, some things that happen later, I'm a bit afraid. But thus far, it seems fine because it kind of slows down a bit after those 3 arcs. Like once it gets into the Lullaby arc and the Galuna arc, it's like not barely there. So yeah, and it focuses on some other aspects of Lucy. But so anyway, but yeah, Lucy gets charmed by Bora, Salamander, who supposedly the salamander of Fairy Tail. And, through Natsu, she realizes that he's using magic. But even though he's using an illegal magic, she still gets kind of swept up by his pace later. Because he's like, oh, yeah, come to my yacht. Or whatever. And also, she has an interaction with Natsu. Well, I like how she, like, sees him as this idiot. So she just, like, she explains... she gives the exposition... But, like, she doesn't imagine him as a wizard at all, so she's, like, explaining, like, guilds and wizards and stuff, but Natsu's already, like, this, like, infamous, like, Fairy Tail guild wizard. So, I like that. And there was also, because, like, Lucy specifically wants to join Fairy Tail, and, like, she's reading a newspaper and she's, like, laughing about how they cause so much fucking trouble, and we kind of see it in Chapter 2 especially, where Fairy Tail, the guild, they value freedom. And so there's reasons for it, but I definitely think Lucy, like, she was attracted by that freedom, which is why she specifically wanted to join Fairy Tail. Did you have any? I just realized I've been going and going. Did you have any thoughts about this first chapter at all that I had?
It took a bit of a turn that I wasn't expecting. Around, like, I don't know, the conflict point, whenever.
Yeah, when Bora brought out the fucking brand and, oh yeah, we're gonna sell you into slavery. Yeah, that was a bit of a turn.
It went from, like, oh, okay, we're gonna... I don't know. It just seemed like a very steep escalation in stakes. I don't actually know how I'm trying to phrase it, but I was like, chapter 1, maybe it's a little quick to get into that, but...
Maybe, yeah.
It ended up working out in the end, so it was... fine. That just worries me though. Like, I'm not saying that, like, every story needs to ease you into stuff, but this is Mashima. Like, coming off of Rave, I wouldn't expect him to. Yeah.
Because, like, Rave also, like, because, yeah, Rave did ease you, well, kind of, like, because it got, like, there was the one scene where they saw, like, all of Demon Card's tragedies across the world, and there's, like, a woman getting stabbed, and, like, people hanging, and, and, of course, fucking Branch, like, that shit was, like, existential as fuck. But that all happened later in the series, whereas this is, like, yeah, let's go right into the human slavery. But one other thing I had to note, where it's, like, because when, like, Lucy's, like, she's like crying when she's about to get branded about how, like, are these the thing a Fairy Tail wizard does, where it's like Bora's, he's not actually a Fairy Tail wizard, but, like, what he's doing is sort of like the corruption of freedom, where it's like freedom at the expense of others. Like, he's, trying, so I feel, like that was why Lucy, because he uses forbidden magic and, like, tricks, enslaves people. Like, he's being free, but to the point where it's like, evil, pretty much. So, and of course, like, Fairy Tail doesn't really operate that way, even though they do cause trouble, because, of course, Natsu comes in to save the day, and he gets a bit of a fight. Lucy also uses her key with Aquarius, And yeah, the arc pretty much like I don't think I have much to say about the first chapter beyond that. But Natsu, he's a fairy tale mage after all. What a twist! The character on the cover page is in the titular guild of that in the title of the manga. Yeah.
I mean, I do think that this early stretch, like I remember when we were reading Rave, it was the first stretch of chapters were just kind of a lot of what's going on, where are we going with this? It's a lot of like quick little conflicts, like. And I mean, Mashima even said, like, in the afterwards for Fairy Tail, that he's not quite sure where he's going with it. He's not quite sure what the greater scheme is. Like, people, I guess, had made comments like, oh, he's setting up these big details for the world. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
And...
So, but like, Fairy Tail feels more, like, thus far, Fairy Tail feels more like there's a better idea of, like, where things are going from the outset.
Yeah. Because they've already mentioned like a very a potential big antagonist with Zeref, because in the Lullaby arc, and then he comes back up again with Deloria, and then Natsu's he has a long-term end goal. He's gonna find his dragon dad, so it's like there's like threads to be picked up later, but anyway, Natsu beats up the slavers, and then, like, the army comes in and they're gonna arrest everyone, and Natsu's like, no, let's run. Then we get the council bitching about Fairy Tail again, but Sieg kind of laughs them off. Like, oh, without those idiots, this world would be boring. And that's chapter 1.
I also think that maybe just the setup of the guild seems like a better way to handle character. Like he can introduce these characters early on, and then kind of like what My Hero Academia does with like the school setting, where like you get introduced to a bunch of these characters at once, and it does feel like a lot at first, and they seem kind of just one note, but then like he can kind of go back to them later and like, okay, let's take an arc and focus on Gray, let's take an arc and focus on Urza.
Yes.
So like,
because that for like a lot of these like big name ones, yes, that definitely happens. Like obviously we haven't gotten to them, but yes, because we get to the guild and there are a bunch of doofuses, and we see Musica, who, I don't know, like, okay, but maybe it's just me, but Gray on his necklace, like, I guess it's a cross at the end of his chain, but it also kind of looks like the Rave, just like a little mini sword, so... maybe it's because I've never got a close, like, if I got a real good close-up on it, like, it doesn't look quite different even from a distance, but it does look quite, it still looks a bit different from a distance, too, but it's just, like, just the fact that he's, like, got this tiny, like, sword-like thing, I'm just, like... Is that another Rave? Is this Rave reference wearing a Rave reference? And even then, he only like looks like Musica like sometimes. Like he's different enough, but it's like he's also close enough that I feel the similarity. Yeah. Whereas like I don't do that with. Or what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say there were a couple of characters where like it seemed like they were sort of similar, but nothing where it's like, okay, here is literally a design from Rave, like with Sieg, where it's like, here's this design just kind of repurposed.
Yeah, like another similar one is probably Kana with Julia. That was the one I mentioned before, where it's just like different hair color, but like just the bikini tops and drinking makes me think of the same. Mm-hmm. So just little stuff. Like it's not like, oh yeah, they're the same character. Like I mean, even Sieg acts very differently. And he has a different name that makes him totally different. We get all these doofuses. We see them go through their freedom, and they start. But Makarov sort of like tones them down a bit. The guildmaster comes in, and okay, here's where I bitch a little bit, because it's like freedom is a big thing, and they have an obviously ideological conflict with the council. So you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna go somewhere. It doesn't. It's like reading this was actually kind of frustrating because it's so obviously right there, but it's not like it's brought up, but like nothing kind of happens with it, and I think that's frustrating because it's like why it's so much attention is being paid to it, but no.
No, but then so of course the guy who like sticks up for Fairy Tail within the council is actually the evil guy.
Yeah, he's being hella shady. Like his minion Ultier is like focused on Deloria, and it's like and he's like telling Urza like, oh yeah, don't mention that. whatever that is, and it's like, yeah, so it's so yeah, it does seem kind of like they're blatantly like, and yeah, the Makarov says like, oh yeah, the council can eat crap, and so it's like, see, I'm wondering if, like, again, Cryptodesha is a thing, like, One Piece would have been going full steam at this point, so maybe, Mashimo was influenced by that with, like, goofy setting, like, freedom and family, but, like, in his different, like, maybe, like, his editor even pointed out to him, like, maybe he was planning to have some council, fairy tale conflict, but, like, decided not to do it because it was too close to One Piece, and ended up dropping that whole, like, major thematic tangent. So it's like, I don't know, that's just a thought I had while reading it, because it's just like, yeah, I'd rather see the conflict, even if it was similar, whatever, because it's like, it's obvious, like, there's an authoritative force, and there's a group under them that wants freedom, like, explore the system, like,
yeah, that doesn't really feel like a One Piece thing. That just feels like a storytelling thing.
True, in general, yeah. I just thought of One Piece,
but no, I do get it, because like, if they were both being published similar times, although I mean, like, One Piece had been going on while Rave was being published, so like there has been time. I don't know. And
yeah, there is that key difference, because like with One Piece, like, there aren't like literally under the authority of the world government. That's kind of the point. They fight against it. They are outcasts. They are criminals, effectively. Whereas Fairy Tail, like, they do work within that system, but it's never like the differences aren't reconciled, I don't think. And there are some issues with how that comes about, but I'll talk about that later. It's probably later in the podcast too, because I think like rereading it, I've sort of understood one of my issues with Fairy Tail, like, or at least a better framing of that issue, because I probably did talk about it in the tirade, just not well. So, but anyway, like, Makarov also pretty clearly states that, like, because he says that magic is freedom, so. Therefore he's if that's true, then he's setting Fairy Tail as sort of like, they're the correct force in the world, so, don't let authority, tell you what to do. And that actually does come up later in a fine way, I think. But, yep. Anyway, on to, like, the next little arc, like, which is also kind of nice because they are, like, really short arcs, but, like, chapter 2, like, does this introduction and then sets up, like, the next couple chapters, which is with the Macau stuff at the mountain. So, yeah. We get a little bit of backstory with Natsu, where his dad just vanished one day. I think I had some stuff to say. Oh, yeah, that's right. I guess I kind of figured, or I'll talk about it later. But yeah, Natsu, like Romeo wanted his dad. His dad's missing, so Natsu decided to help him. And Lucy kind of went along because she felt like it. Then Lucy gets kidnapped by the Vulcan. And then we it kind of just goes right into it. And then we have the big fight sequences. I don't know, did you have any thoughts about this arc at all?
I liked her little, like, clock spell, or not spell, what's it called?
Horologium, yeah.
Yeah.
Spirit.
Where she can just, like, hide in this box. But then, of course, that's why she gets kidnapped, is because she traps herself in this box.
That's actually really, like, noteworthy, considering this, like, also considering the previous chapter and how it sort of goes into later. Because like, at one point in the series that we haven't read yet, Lucy says that she actually fights with her spirits. And in the tirade, I shat on that, and I was like, oh no, that doesn't happen. But then, like, rereading this stretch, it's very deliberately, like, explored, because, like, in these two chapters and the chapter 1, Lucy is very reliant on her spirits. Like, she summons Aquarius, and she's like, Aquarius, you do everything. And Aquarius gets mad and does everything, including washing away Lucy, which turns into a running gag. And then in this, she uses Horologium because, to be, defended, and Horologium also ultimately kind of does nothing, and she ends up getting kidnapped because she's, like, relying on her spirit to just to walk in the snow. And then she summons Taurus, and he's, like, completely fucking useless. Like, what then? She's helpless. She's, like, relying on her magic so much that when her magic's stripped from her, she's weak. She's helpless. She's nothing, And whereas Natsu, his magic is internal. He's able to fight on his own. And sort of that's something, like, especially that comes up in the Sherry fight on Galuna. And so, but it's, it's just, like, establishing that aspect of her character, I think. And, of course, like, I think where it really comes into focus is at the end when, Macau gets knocked off and, like, Natsu is holding him, and Lucy is holding him, and then that's sort of like Lucy's doing something. She's not just relying on his spirits. She's doing something of her own, like, will and power, even though she is weak. Like, she even says, like, oh, you're heavy. Like, you know, this is something she's not, like, attuned for, but she's still helping. And that's rewarded when Taurus wakes up and helps them all and gets them back up. So it's like, you have this sort of, like, conflict of, you know, her relying on others, but also because she's weak, and then just, like, sort of having to find the strength to do it herself. And I was like, oh, that's good. So yeah, I was like, I was satisfied. Look at me sounding like a fucking Fairy Tail fan.
Yeah, I think someone on my Discord server had, like, pointed out to me that this podcast will basically be Kraftsdorf being like, oh, Fairy Tail's not as bad as I thought it was, and me just kind of being like, it's okay.
Right, because see, I have all the context of hating it, so I'm like reevaluating myself. But you're just like you're a blank slate, so you're free to. It's okay. But yeah, there was also the thing with, like, Romeo and Macau, because, like, we find out that Romeo, like, oh, ferret wizards are weak, they can't do anything, and he was like, he wanted his dad to show how strong his dad was, and his dad went off alone. So it's like he kind of ignored the friendship aspect of it, and, you know, that's why he lost in the end. But friends that everyone helped him, and well, because, like, even when Natsu went out to do the mission, the one guy at the board said, like, oh, won't he be like angry that you know, this kid is helping him? But Makaro said just let Natsu do what he wants, you know, and Macau didn't care. Like, he was like just glad to not die. So it's yeah, just another thing I noticed. Because yeah, Romeo wasn't supporting his dad, but here the friends all triumph because they supported each other. Yeah, themes. Fairy Tail has themes. That makes it good. I don't know. It's just like, I guess it's exciting to me to, like, read it and go like, hey, this is probably why I liked it in the first place. You know, even if it goes to shit from here, it's like, I can understand why someone would get especially, like, because the thing with the conflict of, like, freedom and authority, it's like, it feels like it's obviously being set up there, but the fact that it doesn't really get delivered on, like, that wouldn't be like, if I was reading for this for the first time, I would probably give it, like, more like a 6, because I know I'm not going to or I would think, like, oh man, I can't wait till this gets resolved later. So yeah. So did you have any final thoughts on the Macau arc, or no?
Yeah, I don't really have much to take away from it.
It's okay. I'm here. So anyway, next we get the Daybreak arc, which was also, I liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was fine.
I'm sure. Oh yeah, we get the. Okay, here I get to bitch about something. So yeah, Lucy's like, you know, like we did, like, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's like, you know, Lucy's establishing the scene, and then Natsu busts in because he's fucking Natsu. And we get the little, like, foreshadowing bit where Lucy's afraid of her writing being seen. And then she ends up explaining the celestial spirits. And we get it. Plu! How did you feel about this, though, when you first saw it?
I mean, at first it was a little, I don't know, I don't think I was really, like, yeah, obviously, it's Plu, I see, it did feel kind of strange that a character from the previous manga was coming back again, as, right, like, a character in a different manga, but...
story, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's more like, oh, here's the spirit with this name of, like, dog something, I don't remember. It's like, what do I call him? Oh, I know, Plu.
Right. And I will say, like I mean, one important thing this, I guess, it sets up that I didn't really notice, it just felt important in the way that it was said in, like, a big frame where she says, Lucy says that, like, oh, I will never break a promise. I don't explicitly remember any promises she's made. Like, I'm sure she has, I just haven't, like, thought about it and, like, oh yeah, that's a promise. And I don't really know if her breaking a promise ever gets, like, touched on later. It just felt important. I will say that, like, the whole thing about, like, spirits can only be summoned on these days under these restrictions, that gets completely ignored later. So, yeah, the scene's supposed to set it up, but it just gets completely dropped, like, because that's inconvenient for Mashima to, like, oh, what day is it? What spirits can Lucy summon, I guess? So he just, like, does whatever, and
yeah,
it's like,
because there's, like, oh, are you available on Mondays? It's like, no, or Tuesdays, and Plu just nods. So, I mean, I don't know, there were, like, I feel like because this was, like, a different version of Plu, I don't know, I felt like there were certain things, like, there was a panel of, like, it looked like Plu was doing some sort of like dancing or whatever, just like the way Plu was moving.
Yes.
That like original Plu wouldn't or didn't really do much. Like that Plu had different characteristics, so I thought that was kind of interesting. But I didn't really have.
What if he's just had? What if it's the same Plu, but he's had character development off screen? I don't know. But anyway, oh yeah, the dancing, because it's like he was telling Natsu and Lucy to form a team, and Natsu understood it when Lucy didn't, so because he's a doofus. And yeah, they decide to go on a mission with to destroy the book. Oh yeah, I will say I like this, like I forget what the name of the publisher is. It's not Viz. It's not Viz. It's what is it called? Who is it?
Is it still Kodansha?
Is it? Yeah, it's the same as the Rave, the last volumes of Rave.
Yeah, that was Kodansha.
I just say, like, yeah, I haven't read many, because I don't read a lot of officially released manga. But I will say, like, this is probably the best translation we've gotten for the Nensho, except for maybe Bleach. Because, like, the One Piece one was fine, the Naruto one was weird, the Rave one was fan-translated, so... But I just like having translation notes, okay?
Yeah, it's funny. I've actually kind of just been skipping over most of those because, like, some of that, like, there were some of them that I looked at because I was like, what the heck does this mean? But there were some of them like, oh, here's why we use the honorifics. I'm like, I understand how that works. I don't need to go over each individual
stuff.
one.
Like, we got that. No, we got that now. Well, because I mean, fair. This is a type of series that this would be like one of the first manga you'd buy. So I get it.
That is pretty useful. So like if you because again, like if you were someone who like. Nowadays, like the modern equivalent is like, oh, Hiroaka is the first anime some people are getting into.
Yes.
So like it would make sense that like those more introductory sort of, not that they're like designed to be introductory, but they just happen to be. So like it makes sense that I don't know, it would be a good place to start to have those translators notes. It makes sense.
Oh yeah, and I did say that they might be the best translation, but there is one specific. I don't even think it's their fault, but we'll talk about it later. I don't. You might have noticed at the end with all tier.
Well, I got that because I was like, oh, okay, because like the R and the L kind of are the similar sound in Japanese. So like
yes, because they outright mention it at the end, like in like one of the last chapters. But it's just like, well, because like they also mention that the names are as Mashima wanted them. So it's like because like I still remember like some of the original translations for some of the names, like even if it's just like a letter difference, you know, like for instead of Laxus, it was Luxus, which I always felt made a bit more sense because Lux makes me think of light, for reasons I can't explain. Wakana was spelled with a K instead of a C. Loki was spelled with an I, like the Norse god, instead of an E. Those are the ones I remember when I first got into it. Basically.
Yeah, like when I first saw that name, I thought it was like Loke, because I was like Sasuke, like that's what the E at the end generally. Well, I don't even know if I want to say generally. I'm not that well versed in Japanese, but like that was my default. Like, oh, is that how you pronounce this?
But what I'm pretty sure happened with all and alt here is that for some reason Mashima gave an R for one and an L for another, even though like. So I'm wondering if that was his mistake, or if it was first if they're deliberately supposed to be different, even though they sound the same in Japanese. So and are obviously supposed like Sieg even says something like, "Oh, Ur's tears are all tier," and I'm like, no, it's supposed to be Ur. Like which as long as they sound the same, you know, it's the same issue I have with the Heavenly Dragons and the Heavenly Demon in One Piece, where it's like, oh no, it's Celestial Dragons. I'm like, just make it the same. So yeah, it's just a little gripe. So anyway, Lucy, like they find out that the Duke Everloo is having he's looking for new maids, and so Lucy dresses up like one before they go to Duke Everloo's mansion. So the mission giver just thinks that like it's just her thing, which is silly. And yeah, they give the mission to destroy the book.
I thought that was kind of like an interesting joke though with like the maid, because I think of just like general like Lolita fashion and stuff, and like that there are some people who they just do that because that's what they're comfortable with, and so that was kind of an interesting little joke in there, because it's like, oh, okay, sure.
Yes, and what I also thought, like, because like as it turns out, you know, she goes there as the maid looking for a job to sneak in and get the book, but she's not to Duke Everloo's tastes at all. Which because like she's trying to use her sexuality as a power again, and it doesn't work because you know she's all powerless and she has to do something else this arc. And like, but how it kind of ends up is like this arc is, I guess she's starting to grow a little bit because like her biggest asset in the arc is her brain, like her knowledge of writing, and like because she's able to discover the secret of the book because she's just by reading it and like going like, hey, this is actually like a big anagram, and a letter to the sun, and she read the original version, and then there's also the fight at the end. So that was just something I noticed, but yeah, they end up. This actually bothered me a little bit for reasons related to like the freedom and authority thing. Because they break into the mansion as thieves, but then they mention something later that made it fine. Did you have a particular thought on that, or just another nothing in particular?
Wait, run that by me again?
They broke into the mansion like thieves, like they're breaking the law, to do their mission. Like that's kind of weird. So
no, I hadn't thought anything of it at the time.
Yeah, well, because it's like see, at first I thought it was sort of leaning into like the kind of like why Sieg lets off Fairy Tail, because like they do more good than harm, and so like, but then it turns out like Duke Everlow he's not really like, he's just a local lord, like so it's more like so they are breaking the law, like the laws of this place, but it's also like not under the Magic Council. Maybe that doesn't make it okay, but I don't know. No one seems to mind as they like break into this house of this like asshole who literally enslaved a writer for 3 years to take care of the book. So oh well. But yeah, they break in, they find the book, she reads it, Natsu has a bit of a thing with the mercenaries. That was a fight, I guess. Did you have any thoughts on it?
I don't even remember what happened in like the first little scuffle. Like I just remember they're like, oh, we're ninjas.
Mercenaries. Yeah. Oh, yeah, speaking of shit that never gets brought up again, like, because they kept mentioning their mama, and they're like, oh, there's from this mercenary guild. Nope, they don't never get, like, mentioned again. Like, we don't know who their mama is. That is kind of a
recurring thing, like, they... Because, like, even in the next arc, there's, like, characters, and it's like, oh, we were in a guild once, and Natsu's like, never heard of them. So it's like these characters seem like they all belonged, or at one point belonged to some sort of guild. It's like, oh, is this setting up for something?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's because like with this, it's like if I've always felt like it was setting up to something that we never got when they're mentioning their mother. Like, yeah, we're gonna see their mom. She's gonna be the mercenary bossist and a later antagonist, right? That's just the shonen thing. That's just what they do. But no, not in this case for whatever reason. I guess the fight did factor into like the knowledge thing, since like what was I gonna say? Fuck. Because like that's something I always thought was kind of weird, was that the mercenaries, like, they fought this like old wizard and they broke all of his bones in his body, because even though and like they were like, oh yeah, wizards are shit, but like all the wizards are kind of throwing punches and being physical that we see in the story. So I'm just like, where did these guys come from that the wizards are this bad? Like that's something that's always bugged me a little bit, but at least like, but yeah, there's like a knowledge thing, and because they're like, oh yeah, we use fire, we can reflect your fire, but Natsu, he's a dragon slayer. Like they completely underestimate Natsu because they feel like they know wizards and they don't. So yeah, that happened.
Yeah, I didn't think it was like a super interesting sort of like conflict for the fight, 'cause it's like, oh, you don't do physical training, but it's like, yeah, he does. Okay.
Yeah, right. It was right. They're just stupid. So it wasn't great, but it's something, I guess.
I mean, unless like up to this point, the other point of comparison would have been Lucy, but I don't know.
Like she is kind of weak, but she has her strengths elsewhere, and that's also kind of her thing. But yeah, she gets attacked by the Duke, and they have a bit of an argument, because she's calling him out on being a piece of garbage. And of course, explaining that the book has a real secret, and they sort of have a celestial spirit fight. And yeah, Lucy, like, I somehow didn't notice this before, but she she helps Cancer defeat him. Like, she grabs Duke Everloo around the neck and keeps him out of the ground so Cancer can deliver the finishing blow. And I was like, oh, there's Lucy fighting with her spirits. Like, she's not just letting Cancer do everything. She's actually, like, helping him in the battle. So, yeah. Did you have any thoughts on the last part where they return the book and they find out it's secret, or?
I just felt kind of confused, I think, by all the developments with this book, because it's like, oh, he wrote a book, a bad book, in 3 years, and he was enslaved to do it because the guy was a jerk. No, it was actually a note to his son. And then there's like all the developments afterwards were like, see, he like died because he wrote like he cut off his arm because he's like, I will never write again. But it's like because he wrote a
Yes,
a
and
book,
then his son
a
like
note
shat
to
on
his
him,
son,
and then he killed himself.
and then he died. He committed suicide. Like, why didn't he just explain like, hey, yo, this is what I did? I don't know.
Yeah, because the book never would have found him, and that was kind of weird because he never would have gotten the book, or like, and he was about to destroy it. Like, it was 31 years. The book was just sitting there. So yeah.
I don't get why the father like, because like if he did the spell and everything, like why did he just die? Like why did he just let that happen? Like die with this misunderstanding with his son? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean maybe it has to do with the son's last words to him, but still, yeah, it's kind of. I thought that was weird too.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I don't understand because if the son was like, yeah, you should have stopped writing because you wrote this piece of shit book, you piece of shit. Why wouldn't he just be like, there's the magic? Because I mean, it was. I don't know. I don't understand the logic here.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because like, I mean, it did like Natsu being pissed because like Natsu doesn't have a dad, or his dad's gone, and here's like, this guy is like about to throw away, the last thing his father dead, or his memory, and Natsu got pissed.
Yeah,
so.
it was interesting seeing Natsu go from like, well, who cares what's in the book? Let's just burn it because that's our job. To then being like, well, hey, why would you want to burn this book? Because it was so like
right.
It's a difference in like what his priorities are depending on the time. So like, but he's like very passionate about whatever it is. It's a very Luffy thing where it's like, okay, when I have more context, then I'll be I don't know.
He'll care more, right? Because once it's about family, Natsu suddenly cares exactly. And of course, he turns down the reward because like they couldn't even pay it anyway. And he didn't feel like it.
And that
so
becomes a recurring thing. They'll do these quests for big money and then never get any money in the end.
Yeah. And I guess that ties into the freedom thing too. Like, because like Lucy didn't just follow the mission to the T because she was like, no, it should be done differently. And yeah, they technically didn't succeed in the mission because they didn't destroy the book. So of course they don't get money. So they're free to turn down the reward too. So yeah, it was fine.
I mean, I did think that was kind of cool because it's like, yeah, we didn't complete the mission, so no money. Try again next time.
Yep.
Seems like there are some ideas there.
Yep. Oh shit, we gotta rank the arcs eventually. Oh no, I hadn't thought about that. I'm gonna do that afterwards. Not on the podcast. Like just myself for my notes, so I don't like have to like rank like 12 arcs later. I'll send you a list so you can too if you want. Anyway, so yeah, moving on. They're back to the guild. We get a little bit of setup where it's like, Makarov's at a regional guild meeting, which comes up later. And of course we get introduced to dark guilds, which also come up later. And then we get Urza. What did you think about Urza?
This was when like I started to be more interested in Fairy Tail. How often will I get to say that in this podcast?
Yeah. Well, see, because like I like how Urza's introduction works because she's like she's all about the rules and like but she's also has the power, so she's like rearing in Fairy Tail. Like we've seen these guys be doofuses for like a dozen chapters or so, and now here she comes in being like, no fun allowed. Like Kana, put on a shirt and stop drinking. And Natsu and Gray are like, hey, we're not fighting, we're buddies, we're best friends. Like, so she I think it's good in like the conflict she offers in the beginning. So
yeah, it was good setup for her character that like, everyone in Fairy Tail is afraid of this woman. What's she about? So it makes you interested. It makes you want to know what are her powers? What does she do?
Yes.
Although it is kind of weird how there's this feud between Gray and Natsu that apparently they can't let Urza know about, or they claim to have
because she'll bitch
hidden
about
before.
them. Yes.
But then like later they go on the train and like Lucy makes a side comment like, oh, because you're fire and ice magic, is that why you two don't get along? And then Urza's like, is that true? Do you not get along? And Gray's just like, who cares? And it's like, shouldn't there be some sort of reaction there? Like, didn't Urza believe that maybe she never believed that they were actually friends and they were just putting on airs for her, but like, that's never, I don't know. Like, why was there this little like setup that like they would be all chummy around Urza, but then it's just like swept away, and then it like comes back later, like, oh no, we're friends, haha. I don't.
Yeah, see, I don't quite remember how it gets resolved, but I will say I always thought her initial reaction to the guild was weird because it's like later at the end of this arc, the Blue Pegasus Guildmaster says like, "Oh wow, Urza, you've gotten so big." Like the thing with a lot of the guild members is they've literally been members since they were kids. Like so like Natsu, Urza, and Gray have known each other for years, and something about her introduction always felt like, you know, this isn't a character who's been here for years. Like, I don't know, so, like, because it's like, oh, why are they so afraid of her? And it's like, oh yeah, she beat them up once each, and like, I don't know, I just always felt that was weird because like that's one incident, and these characters have known each other for way longer. So it's just a personal thing that I find.
No,
weird.
I kind of get that, because if it was like, I'm trying to think of an example, but I can't. But like if there was a character,
well, it's like
now I think of one. I'm thinking like Full Metal Alchemist, Izumi Curtis, when she shows up, she's like, the boys are scared to death of her because like she beat them up numerous times to like train them. Like she was very
numerous.
She's a very like
right.
hard. Wait, what's the word? I can't think of the word. She's like not soft on them. Like she's very like tough
Strict.
love. That's the phrase I'm looking
Gotcha.
for. And so like there's set up for that. Whereas like you're saying here, they've known each other for years, and apparently there was like one fight where they got beaten really badly.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Or well, because it's like or it's like she found Gray walking around nude and beat him, and he got beaten badly. But it's like he's always been doing that for years, like because we see it in the flashback. Like he got that habit from his mentor before he would have joined Fairy Tail, and like, if they'd known each other for so long, she would have been well aware of that habit. So it's, and like even then, like when he's being scared of her, he's already nearly naked, and I don't think she said anything about that. So it's just like, you know, not really considering like the time, because I feel like again Mashima would have had this plan, so it's just a weird like thing not to account for, I guess. And because like for another example, I thought of Luffy and Garp in One Piece, because like he was really afraid of his grandpa when he you know first saw him, and it's like, yeah, years of abuse for training. It's like, you know, another like long, like the levels of trauma they're showing seem like more than just one incident.
Yeah,
you know. So especially if they're supposed to have such a history together. So yeah, I just always thought that was weird.
Perhaps. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
Yep. But I do like Lucy like using that, where she's like, she calls out to Urza while they're fighting, and they're like, "Hey, we're such good friends right now," and she just laughs because they're stupid. And Urza in general is good. Like she's just stupid, and I love it because it's like Natsu's getting sick, and she's like, "Here, come sit by me," and then she like fucking knocks him out. Like, so he's not like about to. So yeah, now he's not nauseous anymore. He's just unconscious. It's like. And then later on, when the crisis at the train station is going on, and she's like, "Tell me what's going on," and then she like immediately headsbutts them, and she just like cycles through employees, just like knocking them the fuck out. It's like, what are you doing? You're so stupid. I don't know. I just think it's funny. But yeah, on the train, we get introduced to Gray's magic, and Urza explains the mission. You know, there's a dark guild, Eisenwald, and they're going to use some magic to possibly kill people, so Ursa's ready to stop them. And then Kageyama meets Natsu on the train, and he's, you know, he hates him because he's a light guild. Like in general, these guys just have a general like, well, because like, you know, they're outside of the system, and they have an animosity towards those in the system, you know. So one thing that wasn't really explored was like, I guess like that, because, you know, again, the council sort of puts authority on both of them, but Fairy Tail is allowed to be, you know, fine, even though they cause trouble, and the Dark Guild, but they do assassinations, so they're bad. They're not allowed, you know, they're a Dark Guild. So I don't remember if that was specifically called attention to, but I guess it's a reason for them to be more envious of the Light Guilds. So, because yeah, that's basically what happened. Is the system changed? No more assassination quests. So you're a Dark Guild now because you're gonna keep taking them. So, yeah, I guess I don't know. But anyway, did you have any thoughts about the setup that's going on, or? Because there's the train, there's the flute, the magic flute. Are you there?
I guess I don't have anything to say. I'm not even remembering anything.
Oh my god. This is where your Rave left more of an impression on you. Damn, that's actually weird.
I don't know. I just remembered like things happen to set up the set piece, and I don't know.
Yep. But anyway, they get to the train station, and Aragorn's causing shit. He leads them to believe they're broadcasting the lullaby, but to trap Fairy Tail into in the train station. Oh, we see Urza fight a bit. She's got powers. She gets to change her armor. She's a magical girl.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought of too. Like when she did the transformation, I was like, "Hey, is she a magical girl?"
Nice. She's strong. Though of course, I kind of like how they like nerfed her so she doesn't like overshadow, because it's like, yeah, she's supposed to be one of the strongest guild members, but they had her use all of her magic power on the magic car buggy thing to go fast.
Yeah.
And so so Natsu and Gray are the ones who kind of have to be the focus. So that's cool.
Good power scaling.
Yes. We get a brief cut to the guild meeting where Makarov learns that Urza has teamed up with Natsu and Gray after because the other guildmaster was like, oh yeah, one of these days Fairy Tail is going to destroy a whole town, and then he's like, no, that's not going to happen, and then he learns about the team up, and he's like, oh no, that actually might happen.
Yeah, that was a good. Speaking of Urza's magical girl transformation, there's the panel I showed you where Lucy is like,
oh yes,
I think I've got a girl crush, and I'm like, what does that mean? Why you phrase it like that? What are you?
I don't know. It's relatable, but I don't know. The translation notes didn't say anything?
Not that I remember.
Okay, yeah, I have no idea. I'd want to see other translations then if I was curious about digging into it. But it's kind of weird. But anyway, yeah, it's just kind of things happening, setting up for, like you said, the set piece where it's like, everyone's trapped in the train station. There's the Kagayama stuff where he gets a fight, and then they have him trapped and are trying to get information out of him, and he literally gets stabbed in the back. I kind of like how the guy who stabbed him doesn't see, like, he did it, but he's like obviously kind of like not okay with it. He's has like doubt on his face as he's like looking at his stabbed friend or comrade. So that I kind of like that.
Well, yeah, because
he
was just doing what he was told to do, but that doesn't mean that he's free from guilt, that it was okay because he was just following orders. Like, that's not how that works.
Yeah, he's still right. Yeah, exactly. He still followed the orders. So like when Natsu beats the shit out of him, it's like, yeah, but I just like that. I just like that little reaction from him. So he's not like not everyone in the Dark Guild is as that cruel, you know. Even though he still did it. Which of course sets up the whole thing, because it's like, yeah, the Fairy Tail captures him and they actually show him like kindness, and it's like, oh, maybe, and he changes a bit. He decides not to use lullaby in the end because friendship. Because yeah, see, the theme of this arc is something I understood ages ago. Because like I was like, yeah, friendship, yeah, it's pretty clear. But anyway, they use Virgo to get out of the train station because Happy just happened to have it, I guess. That's kind of dumb. Well, because like he even says like, oh yeah, I was trying to remember when we came to your place, and I'm like, I tried to look back and see if there was a moment where that might have foreshadowed that he had the key, but I didn't find a moment of Happy at Lucy's place in between this arc and the Duke Everlue one.
I remember the part where he's like, hey, I have something to tell you on the train, and then he just didn't remember.
Oh,
but
okay, so that's weird, because he said when it was on the train. Okay,
yeah, because he was like, I have something to tell you, but I can't remember. And then
so it was foreshadowed. Okay, because Happy said when we came to your place, and I was like, but there was no scene of Happy at Lucy's place.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
no,
that
it
was
mentioned on
that
the train.
was
Okay.
the thing though. I don't remember anything hinting that like, oh, it was the key, or like, oh, he found it at.
No, yeah, he did.
But yeah, like it was set up to like, hey, I have something
to
say.
Yeah, because obviously if he remembered the key, then he would have remembered it, and actually like given it to her then. But like. So, okay, I've never noticed that it was foreshadowed, so fine, I'm fine with it now. It's a little cheap, but whatever, I don't care. Yeah, One Piece has done similar stuff before.
There was there was sort of the callback to the moment in the I don't remember the name of the antagonist, but the one with the book with Daybreak, where there was
the Duke Everlue.
Yeah, Duke Everlue, where like Natsu had temporarily like traveled through the spirit world,
yes,
or whatever it was called. So it was interesting to kind of like reference back to that as like, oh, hey, maybe it might not happen now, but maybe this is a setup for a payoff later possibly, even though like they had a different solution for this time. They just dug under it.
Yeah, because she can just burrow anyway. And then, but they use her to get out. Of course, Mashima would make the design more like appealing, because she can shapeshift, I guess, a bit. But anyway, so yeah, they get out. Natsu gets to Aragorn, so they can have their fight. Okay, did you have any thoughts on the Aragorn fight, or was it just a fight? Because it kind of was.
There was the one part where like Natsu uses his flame to catch onto the bridge, and I remember you had pointed that out at some point in the tirade, though I don't remember what you said about it. No,
it was actually the mid battle flashback video.
Oh, okay.
Zoro. Yes. So it was more recently. So yeah, because you would have watched that after we did One Piece. So yeah, no wonder you remember that one. Because it's just so. It's so wild. Because no, he doesn't do anything like this again. It doesn't. Why is he Spider-Man? I don't get it. It's so dumb. Like, physical flame would be cool, I guess. Maybe a little bit of like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do everything with fire. But it's like, why does it never get used? I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah, I don't know. It was like a limitation that had been set before, and then it's like, oh, but I need a reason for him to catch onto this bridge, so this is the best I can come up with. And
I don't even think he could have just, I don't know, not been knocked off the bridge or just used his physical hands. Like, maybe it wouldn't have been as cool. It's just weird.
I mean, like, if this had been, you're saying it wasn't set up for anything, this is like a one-time thing, it would have been interesting to see him, like, if it was, since it was set up here to like see him use his fire in different ways, that like if he could somehow like catch people without burning them or something, or like what the side effects of changing the element or whatever, the property of the flame would
the properties be. Or yes.
But otherwise it's just a real head scratcher, like
Yeah, but
like I liked the conclusion to the fight where it's sort of like the double-edged sword of like the wind can put out a weak flame, but if you just make a stronger flame, then the wind will fuel the fire.
The wind
because
pressure and attracts the wind towards it. Yeah, I've always liked that. That was cool.
Yeah, because that happens. That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, because like I mentioned this in my way old video, the Rising Stakes video, where I first talked about Fairy Tail, where it's like I kind of like how the early Fairy Tail sets up, because it does kind of almost the One Piece like esque thing, where it's like it's not handicapping the characters, but it's putting them at a disadvantage, where it's like. Here, Natsu's fighting Aragorn, who's got like a wind. He's naturally has a bit of an advantage against fire. And then later he fights Yuka, who's got literally anti-magic. So Natsu has to come up with these like creative ways to overpower his opponents, even though, which I felt like was like these are characters who are weaker than Natsu normally, but because of that advantage, it makes the fight more difficult for him. And I like that, but it also doesn't have as it's not given as good an arc across the story, like where it's like it just stops kind of being a thing, like, and yeah.
I mean, like there was also the little part where he fought the guy who like doubled his fire magic or whatever, like he threw it back at him, but because that's just Natsu just like eats fire, it just like made him more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, they could redirect fire, but but that was another example, because it's like, yeah, Natsu it doesn't matter if you make his fire bigger, make the fire bigger, it's still he's just you can't do anything to Natsu with fire. Like so yeah, and so yeah, I think that what the issue becomes is like they keep fighting foes with like powers that have advantages over them, but they're also just like way stronger foes. So the power scaling is broken. Is what happens, I guess. But anyway, the fight kind of ends because it also happens because Happy like eggs on Natsu's rivalry with Gray, which is like a kind of weird way to use friendship.
Yeah, because he's like, just give up. I'll call Gray and he'll finish this, and
yes,
because he wants to like make him angrier, and make his flame stronger.
Right. So like he's using a kind of like rivalry. It's not like a friendship punch. It's a rivalry punch. See, and I guess I don't know. It's kind of I'm trying to contrast that with Aragorn. Because that's another thing. Is like
unless maybe it's to say like Happy knows Natsu so well that he also knows what makes him angry, and so he's able to use his friend's anger for good. I don't know.
That might be a better way to frame it. Yeah. Because it's like I will say like the only because we talked about the sort of like power symbolism matching back in we have throughout when we can, because I'm like I don't see how Aragorn's wind magic factors into anything, or much. Like, Natsu has burning flames of passion, I guess, and with Gray and Leon later, it's directly, or Lion, I don't know how you pronounce it. It's directly mentioned that it's a thing, frozen in time, kind of or they're. Well, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, Aragorn has always bugged me for some reason. I don't know why him specifically, but it's like, what does wind have to do with anything? I don't know why. It's just like, and because like I said, Mashima did decent ones back in Rave. Not all of them, but there were some good ones of that. And I always like that. I like that attention to detail, But yeah, in this case, it's not really there. So very sad.
Will there be a moment where the main character gets to stab his like best friend, but it works and it's like thematically relevant and it like saves the day?
We shall see.
How do I save my friend without killing them? I know I will stab them.
Yep.
I'm being facetious, but like it was actually a good moment.
No, yeah, it's fine.
Like I'm hoping Fairy Tail has at least a single moment where it's like, hey, this was a higher high than what Rave was able to hit. So far, not yet, but I am waiting for it.
I think it's a bit more consistent. Like
no,
roughly,
yeah.
I would say this stretches about at Blue Guardians level, like as far as consistency, at least.
Yeah, I forget if I said this just before the podcast or if I also said it on the podcast. But yeah, like the beginning of Fairy Tail feels stronger than the beginning of Rave.
That's for sure. You said that on the podcast, yeah, because that's just like clear. Well, because like Rave was like Mashima's first weekly serialization. Like he'd done one shots before, but this is his first time. Like, oh shit, I have to make a second chapter. And so it's like, yeah, it's kind of understandable that he wouldn't do so great because like seeing people reacting to the first part of Rave, it's like, oh yeah, this is awful. Like on my server and stuff, it's like, and it's like I've already been through it, so but I get it.
I guess another sort of like one thing we hadn't really talked about with Fairy Tail was like the art, because with Rave it started off really rough and he got better. But with like Fairy Tail, I'd hate to think that like maybe it starts off good and gets worse, because that happens in some manga.
A bit worse, a little bit, not like majorly worse, but the earlier stuff is definitely better, I'd say.
Well, yeah, because it does start off good, which like makes sense as like the continuation of where he was in Rave.
Rave, right?
What was the other thing I was gonna say? I also liked how in his like afterwards, he was talking about like, we've already completed a year of serialization, but he's like, I knew I could do it because I'd already done it once with Rave. But like it also does feel very Toriyama Dragon Ball, and that like he doesn't like I had said earlier, he people were telling him about like how he was setting up details of the world, and he's like, oh yeah, I don't really know what's going on long term. I'm just kind of he specifically had a comment in, I forget which volume it was, but he's like, well, I hope we can hit 3 years or so of serialization. And I'm just thinking, this is Fairy Tail. He went on for a little longer than 3 years. Like Rave Master wasn't even that short.
Yeah, and the Fairy Tail was much longer. See, I almost like hate how like good of a manga author is Mashima is in regards to like his just ability to fucking pump out content, because it's like I just think about Kishimoto and Kubo having health issues and Togashi being fucking dead, and it's just like fucking no, but the one who's gifted with like the body and like my work mindset to make manga like constantly is because he's on his 3rd series. That's probably going to be more than 30 volumes long.
See, and even then, more, like I'm thinking. I'm like thinking of all these other mangaka, like, is Oda gonna even do anything after One Piece? I don't think so, but like he might, maybe. No, Kishimoto with like Samurai 8, Kishimoto's not even doing the artwork, like one of his assistants is working with him.
Kishi Samurai.
Or one of his old assistants, rather, I guess.
Yeah, he's not even doing the art. Kubo, it was announced that he was going to do a new project, but it turns out to be he did the character designs for a Sakura Wars game. So he does not like look. So he said that he wants to do I want Burn the Witch. Give me Burn the Witch, Kubo.
Oh no! I got so hyped that we were gonna have the big 3 authors back in Jump all at the same time again, and no.
I want Burn the Witch. Give it to me. Sorry, I'm just excited. It was good. I liked it. Even though I'm gonna inevitably have to defend Kubo from stupid people. But anyway.
See, I'm only bringing this up now because we did end up somehow getting to Kubo. I was thinking of like Lucy and how like she is this more weaker character compared to some of the other ones. And for whatever reason, I just thought of like Orihime and how like there was still an interesting story to be told with a character who doesn't necessarily get like big fights. So I'm like, well, maybe there would be something cool with Lucy. Even though like at the time I wasn't super high on Orihime, and it's more like thinking back on it now, which is just me with Bleach. It's just like when I'm not reading Bleach, I like it way more. I don't know why that is.
Yeah, see, because like I kind of feel bad for Lucy because it's like I did the same thing I dislike people doing with like Orihime, where it's like, oh, she's a weak female, therefore she is bad, or Rebecca. But it's like, pay attention. Like again, I don't know exactly. Like I might not be satisfied with Lucy by the end, but at the moment, because like before I've said like Urza's always been my favorite character in Mashima's stuff, like in these early arcs specifically. But after rereading these early arcs, I'm like, no, I like Lucy a bit, maybe a little bit better. So it's like, and it's also weird, where it's like Mashima, who I did a whole video on shitting on how he like handles his women. In the first stretch of Fairy Tail, I'm like, yeah, Urza and Lucy are the best characters.
And then like in women. Rave, I think you had even said that like Julia was up there too, and like your favorites.
Yeah. Right. So it's like, wait a minute, what is this opposite day? Like, see, with Naruto, at least with like it's like, you know, we're like, yeah, Sakura could be better, but she's also not as bad. And, you know, I wish we saw more Tsunade or Hinata, but it's like, they also weren't in our top 5 at all.
Yeah, with Kishimoto, it was a lot of just the women should have had more screen time.
Or focus, or just, more well-handled in general.
Maybe not like all the women collectively, but like at least one character. Like Sakura was in like the main 3, like you'd think she would have had a big... Not to say that she doesn't have a character arc, but now we're going way off into the weeds. We're talking about...
We're
talking about... I think we've mentioned basically every manga we've read now over the course of the podcast in this episode.
No, yeah. I warned them. That we've already read these things, so we're probably going to bring them up. like I said, especially Rave. But anyway, so yeah.
The Nensho podcast, more like an overly long tirade on shonen manga.
In general.
I was going to say Shonen Jump, but this isn't a weekly Shonen Jump manga.
No, yes. So anyway, Kageyama, he has the lullaby. Also, I realized this one's shorter because I felt like on the first episode of Rave, well, we had way more chapters for Rave too. Like this is only 46 chapters, where with Rave we had like 87. So yeah, but and also Rave was technically more arcs. So, but anyway, Kageyama has the flute. He's about to play it.
This was a cool moment. I did like this, where it was sort of the. Because like they had saved him, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna take you to hospital, and you know, you should straighten out your life or whatever." But then he still like commits to this evil team. Like even after the big bad is taken down, like the final climactic moment is with the side character who had kind of been set up.
Right.
Which is interesting because I think he had like he was set up or maybe not, but like I don't know, he had just about as much set up as the other guy.
Well, it's like they'd mentioned. Like Aragorn and stuff, but like Kageyama was the one we saw in the Urza flashback where she was at like the bar, and Kageyama was the first one who showed up at the train, like really interacting with the Fairy Tail members. So yeah, like Kageyama is like the most important of the antagonists, even though he's not the main one. Mm-hmm. Who I would still say Aragorn is. But so yeah, that was nice. But yeah, it's like Makarov sort of just explains the whole like point to the conflict because that's the thing. Kageyama is like he goes at it alone without his guild, and Makarov points out like weak people will always be weak, just because something weak is evil, or is just because something is weak doesn't mean it's evil. And guilds are friendship, like we're people being together. And so he kind of gets at Kageyama's desire, and and here he's standing alone trying to work even though he's weak. So and he gives up, and it's nice. And then there's a big fight sequence after that, which doesn't matter as much.
It's I guess more set up for Zeref, cool. Because like you get the big evil, the big thing, which it's not Endless, but for whatever reason I was like, hey, look, big monster reminds me of Endless, but now I'm being pedantic. But yeah, like there's just this big fight at the end. It's like, oh, we gotta beat this guy now, which again, like. If it's more like set up for these powers that Zeref has, so I'm fine with it, even if it wasn't. I mean, like I guess the flute had been set up, but no, it's fine. I don't have to add a caveat that there's something bad about it. No, it's just fine.
yeah, you just get to see all the dudes being cool as they take down this big ass monster, and then they, of course, they destroy the council building and ruin everything because it's Fairy Tail.
Not everything can work out for them. There's got to be some sort of drawback because it's Fairy Tail. The only other thing I had to say about this little arc, there was the one guild leader who is very like Okama-y. And yes. Maybe I'm just not remembering One Piece all that well, because it has been a bit since I read that stretch of chapters. But this guy felt more like stereotypical Okama, where he's like the panels where he is around. Like there's the one where he looks at Gray like, and Natsu, and he's like, "Oh, you're cute," and they're like all like terrified as it's like, "Oh, predator-y." Yes. And then he gets all like rubbing up on Kageyama. Which is like, that's the Okama like stereotype, is like they're more like hands on,
or they'll hit on it. They hit on everything that moves. Which like I don't think One Piece if One Piece does it, it's usually aimed at Sanji specifically. Like, you know, so it's and then of course it's like Mr. 2 was the first one we got introduced to, and he didn't have any like promiscuity to him at all. Like he still does. He never did. Mm-hmm. You know. So, yeah.
So, like, I mean, there's...
Like, he's just like, oh, yeah, friendship. I love, like, hanging out with you guys. You guys are cool. Like, he wasn't hitting on them or anything.
If this guy's a guild leader, maybe he'll be more important later, and he'll have other things to do that are more
He has
general.
A little bit more, at least, for sure. Yeah, but, and the question... Well, see, and of course, it could kind of be alleviated if there were, like, other characters, you know, to contrast with, because it's like... Because, like I said, One Piece does kind of the same thing in some regards, but it, like... I could point at Mr. 2 and say, like, look, it's not every single one of them, you know? So, which I guess is more of an issue, you know? If it presents this, like, holistic view of, like, oh, everyone is like this, you know? But, so yeah, like, so I understand your concern, because it's not great. But, but I don't remember any specific other characters. I do know he shows up a little bit more. But yeah.
Yeah, that's just kind of what I was getting at, is, like, it seemed like his more defining character moments thus far were just those, as opposed to those and also something else. So, I mean, it's just something I'm looking out for going forward.
No, fair enough. Because, yeah, that makes sense. Anyway, so yeah, we get a bit more of the council, where they're bitching about Fairy Tail, and once again, Sieg does is like, oh, well, it could have been worse if Lullaby was actually used and killed the guild masters, but, you know, Fairy Tail stopped them, so it's fine. You know, once again, getting at that conflict, when we do get the sort of wrap up where it's, you know, the Aragorn escaped to never show up again. So if you saw that panel, it was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to see Aragorn again. He shows up in anime filler, which I actually kind of don't mind.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mashima didn't do anything.
Yeah,
with
that
him.
Seems like good filler. Like it's something that like expands on something that wasn't really elaborated on in the source. Because the source like why say that he escaped if you're not gonna do anything with that? Otherwise, just don't mention it, because then we just assume that he's gone. He's done.
Didn't Toriyama do that with Raditz in Dragon Ball? Or was that the anime maybe?
I remember Raditz dying. I don't remember.
Yeah, he died, but then Yama said he escaped and didn't go to hell or something.
That might have just been an anime filler thing.
Maybe he just tried to fight or something and got sent. Or
got sent to hell. I think because I think then Goku goes and then it's like, oh yeah, your brother was here or something. He tried to fight me, but I sent him to hell or whatever. Because it's like, oh, you're strong.
Maybe I misremembered that or maybe it was even a bad dub or something like that said that he escaped or something like that. I don't know.
No, but if we are going to talk about like setting up and no payoff with Dragon Ball, the whole concept of the Snake Way. Which like the anime expands on, so that's another case of like the filler makes up for it.
I remember the Mr. Fusion going in on that a bit. Yeah. Yes.
We haven't even read Dragon Ball. We're bringing up Shonen we haven't even read for the show.
Well, see, I kind of like that because as we read more and understand more, we're gonna have more examples to draw from. So yeah. But yeah, it's just, rest in peace, Aragorn. I guess he was Death God, because in this story he fucking died. Might as well have. But yeah, Lucy is sending a letter to her mom with, and of course Gray breaks and enters because he's, Lucy...
Lucy isn't allowed to have a happy life. She's not allowed to have her own home. Someone's always got to be there.
Yeah, basically.
Maybe it's a sign from Mashima that like, hey, don't live alone because then you'll be lonely or something. I don't know. The spice of life, people breaking and entering into your home, it keeps things entertained. I have no idea. I'm waffling at this point.
Yeah, because it's not just Natsu. That's Gray. So yeah. Anyway, but this is definitely a running gag that we're gonna see more of. So yeah. Anyway, Natsu and Urza are gonna have their fight because they promised that they were gonna fight. And we get mentions of we do see them later, but like Urza's the strongest woman in the guild, and then of course there's also the other strong ones we hear about: Mystagon, Laxus, and the old guy. And of course we do actually kind of see Mystagon. He comes in, he's being a sneaky boy, he puts everyone to sleep, and then Laxus is an asshole. But yeah, we're getting more of the guild. So anyway, Urza and Natsu fight a bit, but it gets broken up because Urza has to be arrested. So I guess this is like the closest to, at least in this stretch, the series gets to delivering on the sort of authority deal, because it's like, yeah, someone has to pay for Fairy Tail's like transgression, and Natsu is not. He's so free spirited. He's like, he causes even more trouble. Like, because they like Urza even mentioned it's like. That I would have been fine. Like, I would have been out by the end of the day if you didn't do anything. So I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on this sequence as a whole? Because it happened.
Yeah, it happened. Don't have a huge takeaway from it at the moment.
I mean, it's like the there was a little friendship moment. I liked how Urza. Oh, it did make me happy that you helped me. And Sieg, of course, being a mysterious, sneaky boy, where he's like, "Oh, hey, Urza, don't talk about that person or whatever he said, or that thing, or do not speak of a certain subject." That was it. And he's taken note of Natsu. He says, "Oh yeah, so you're a Fairy Tail Natsu." He didn't know that apparently. And then of course they go back and Natsu still wants to fight, and Urza literally just fucking one shots him. So yeah, that happens. We get our introduction to Laxus and Mystagon, as I mentioned before. Oh, S-Class, that's what they did introduce that, yeah. And I guess this does go more into the authority thing, because now they're breaking the rules of Fairy Tail when they're doing an S-Class mission that they're not supposed to do. Lucy's face when she like decides to go on the mission because it's got a gold key is good.
Yeah, she has a lot of those where she's just like,
yes. Trying to think. But yeah, they're going on the mission. Well, of course, Gray comes to stop them, but it ends up not working out because Natsu knocks him out and they sort of kidnap him. And of course, once he's there, it's like he of course he wants to help because he's a good dude. But yeah, this is basically like Gray's like setup arc, like, yeah. Which is kind of neat how it's like, because it's like how Fairy Tail. Yeah, it's interesting because it's like where One Piece like goes through and adds the members to its crew. Like this is Gray's arc, but it's like he's always been around and he was even in the previous arc, but this is the one that gets him focused. So yeah, it's like you said, and yeah, we're gonna get more for all the other characters, or like, not many of them, rather, and not all of them, obviously. Because like one thing I do like is how like you've got the cover pages now where he just gives like, oh look at this member of Fairy Tail and like some other random details about them, and he'll give these to like background characters. Like, because there's been recurring background characters in the guild, if you've noticed, and yeah, they all have names, and he's gonna explain like, oh, this is what his magic is, even though you're probably never gonna see him get to use it. So I don't know, I just like the details. Okay. How did you think about the mystery getting built up with the spooky ghost guy who took them to the island, and then the demon stuff? Because like, I thought I had some issues, but then actually finishing, I was like, oh wait, no, it's fine. Because I knew what the twist was, obviously. Because it's just... Did you have any thoughts before I go on again and again?
I mean, I guess like the ending of it felt a little weird at first, but I can't think of anything that like contradicts anything, so I guess it's fine.
Well, because like I just thought Boba was a fucking asshole because he gives them cryptic shit and then he just flies away and leaves them to like the tidal wave, and I'm just like, and I just was wondering like, why did he not explain things better? But then I like remembered that like, because the memory shit has been affecting the demons, and it's like if they came not like knowing too much, then like, well, because like when because like obviously he thought his son was dead, so like, you know, if they'd been coming with information like that contradicted them, then they're like, because they were convinced that they were humans being turned into demons, you know, they were cursed. So it's like, it probably would have caused more problems if they knew too much, you know. So I guess it makes some sense for him to like make up this fake story about how he's leaning into the lie of him being dead that his father believes because it would cause problems if they didn't believe that, I suppose. So I don't. It made sense.
Yeah, because I mean, Urza's the one who figures out the mystery in the end. So if he had told that to the other three, I don't know, they might have been too dumb to figure it out. I don't know.
or too dumb to properly like explain it. Well, because like Urza didn't even like really explain it. She showed them by destroying the moon, and she solved the situation at the same time she revealed it all, so she didn't like cause unnecessary problems that through like trying to explain like, oh yeah, your sense of reality is completely wrong. Someone might not accept that so easily. So yeah, it made sense retroactively because I've always thought it was weird, but then I actually read it, pay attention. I'm like, oh no, this makes sense.
I guess it was kind of interesting that the two conflicts weren't as entirely connected as they seemed to be. Like, as it was set up to be, like, it turned out, oh, it's actually more of just, like, a side effect.
Yes. Like, yeah, they weren't purposely messing with the demons. It was just an accident, right? I thought you were going to mention it thematically, because I only just kind of realized, like, how the memory shit kind of, like possibly, even if they had been explained things had been explained to them, they might have just forgotten anyway. Like, because, like, they even mentioned how they never actually went to investigate the moon drip, you know? Like, whatever this memory shit does, it's not good, you know? Well, and it's like Leon literally like frames it this way later, where he says like he mentions how like him and Gray are frozen because it's like they haven't advanced past like the grief of Ur's death, and so here you have this and the demons are also frozen by the curse, like they can't do anything. Kind of, that's why they needed outside help. So and that's kind of what the arc was doing a bit. So yeah, but yeah, they end up having to investigate. Oh yeah, and they start finding, oh yeah, I forgot about that because they find the big rat and then they just beat the shit out of it. Like it looked like it was just running from it, and then Natsu and Gray just defeated it, and I'm like, okay, cool, fine. Oh yeah, and then they find Deloria, the demon, and the antagonists, the guild, the Lamia Scale guys who are working with Lion. I don't know. Oh yeah, there's a bit where they kind of wait there, but Lucy summons Lyre and she plays a song. I don't know. Have you been having any thoughts, or just nothing in particular, as usual?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, gotcha. We'll go for it. Okay. What was it? Shit, I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, because like Gray cries to Lyre's song, and like her, if you like looking at the lyrics, it's like she even mentions like time that leaves you stopped and forging ahead. Like she's kind of like suggesting Gray move on, but and that's kind of like the whole conflict, I suppose. Because yeah, like that's the thing with Lion. It's like he's obsessed with moving on, with like surpassing which is something he can't do because she's gone. Like he's still acting exactly like how he was as a child, and Gray's still blaming himself, just like he was as a child. Like they're still frozen. So yeah, I think I mentioned that before though. Shit, I'm just repeating myself. But yeah, they have their first encounter with Lion. Or Rei-Tei, or I think they say it like Lord Absolute Zero, pretty much, which doesn't flow as well, so I guess I kind of understand why they didn't translate it. Oh yeah, Urza's coming. There's like a page of Urza on her way, because Gray failed to bring them back. Oh yeah, that's right. Back in the Lullaby arc, there was a moment where Gray's using, Ice Maker form magic, and Happy said that there was also a magic that removes form or something like that. I thought that was weird. I'm guessing maybe he's alluding to Ice Shell because it when uses it, it destroys her form. Maybe, I don't know. I thought it was weird that he because Happy is like the knowledgeable exposition dumper. Which I guess is the thing Mashima likes to do. Where he just uses the mascot characters to he literally fucking introduced the fucking starfish to drop exposition that the characters that were there somehow didn't know. But I don't even remember his name. I still don't. Oh god. But yeah, Gray fights Lion a bit. Gets beat. Natsu's not happy about it, of course. Oh, Lucy makes her pit trap. I like the moment later when Urza's explaining everything, like she's doing the fucking detective shit, and she just falls into the trap, and she just gets out and doesn't even break she's just hurt and struggling to say words, but she doesn't stop. She's good. Urza's good. But yeah, Natsu falls into the trap and it breaks his ice. Okay, and this part I thought was weird, looking back. Because yeah, the three guys come in to drop poison jelly to destroy the town, and like, I mean, at the time it's like, oh yeah, they're bad guys, so of course they're gonna do bad things. But like later, they're kind of getting like explaining themselves a bit, where it's like, oh yeah, we didn't mean to turn them into, you know, to mess with the demons any. And then like Urza even says it's like, you know, from their perspective they weren't doing anything wrong, to kind of justify them. And it's like, that's kind of where some of my issue comes about with the authority.
I had a problem with that
freedom
too.
Yes. Because like, and this is something that's not gonna go away, sadly. Like there are gonna be other instances, because I mean it's kind of been happening with Fairy Tail, where it's like they do these bad things, like destroying, you know, causing mass property damage, or like, I mean, obviously, like, and it's like they just kind of get forgiven. And I think that's sort of like the symptom of not being willing to handle the authority freedom theme as well as what, you know, as well as it probably should have been, because it's like that's kind of what the series ends up like. I'm willing to like reconsider myself as I keep reading. Maybe it actually does get resolved and I'm just like completely forgetting everything, but I don't remember being resolved. And I feel, you know, this is kind of the casualty of that, where it's like you have these characters who are acting against authority, but ultimately we're supposed to see them as good, and as a result they're just kind of forgiven for the bad things they do. Because like here you have these bad guys attempting to massacre an entire village, and then it's just like, oh yeah, but they had good intentions. And then it's like, Fairy Tail, you know, again, Fairy Tail causes a lot of shit, but it's okay. They have good intentions. They do more good than they do harm. And it's like, I don't agree with that message. So, yeah.
Yeah, this makes it even weirder, because, like, in that moment, they're referring to, like, whatever they were doing with the moon drip having, like, a side effect. Just the
moon drip ritual,
yeah,
right.
But then there's, like, also this part where they do just try to, you know, they, like, level the whole town.
Right, so that kind of just gets ignored, which is like, I don't think you can just do that.
No.
Because I don't know how you can just file that away under good intentions. Like, yeah, because they get interrupted once in like 3 years, and they're like, okay, yeah, we got to kill all the demons. And it's like,
yeah.
What? Where's that leap in logic, guys? Calm the fuck down. Yeah.
I mean, like, I understand like the optimistic, like, forgiveness aspect of it.
Yeah.
But there's still needs to be like a degree, like, forgiveness does not mean that things should go unpunished if they deserve punishment.
Right. Cuz like it's like, compare this to like Kageyama, he still got arrested. Like he's still getting, you know, a legal punishment for, you know, being with a dark guild. Like even though he gave up. He didn't in the end, all he really did was assault Natsu a bit and get stabbed in the back. Like he did less wrong than these guys. Like they you know, literally attempted murder, a murder of a village. But like these guys don't, you know, it's obviously outside of, like, you know, Fairy Tail doesn't have the authority to do anything, but they just kind of ignore the bad they did. Where I don't know, yeah, it's a little weird. But yeah, let's move on. Because yeah, there's that all happens. Oh yeah, and there was the symbol on the bucket. Does that look like Griff to you? Or no, it's got too big it looks like a rave thing, but I don't know what rave thing it's supposed to be. Like, it's just, I don't know. Maybe someone, or I'm gonna put it on screen right now. I'm actually gonna put something on screen right now. What do you know of the bucket? Because it's like, I don't recognize the thing on the bucket, and I don't know, I could probably just check the Wikia. But now it's bugging me, so. But anyway, yeah, the poison happens, Fairy Tail stops it, and the stage is set for the fighting. So yeah, I guess first is Natsu versus Yuka and Toby. Well, one at a time. There's no real, like, conflict here, like, as far as, you know, as I always try to look into the fights, or at least none that I noticed. I mean, I do like how the fight, it's short, but I do like how the fight goes. I don't know, did you have any thoughts on it? Because I just like Natsu's creative solution for solving
I remember the second fight where he just, like, gets the guy to paralyze himself. And it's like a gag fight. That one was funny.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, a fight, quote unquote. Oh yeah, and this is something more to keep in mind for later. But they explicitly mention that Toby's, like, he's got a weird appearance, but it's like he's wearing like he's it's like makeup basically and like prosthetics. Like he doesn't. It's like if this was One Piece in the grand line, you just see this guy and be like, okay, yeah, he just looks like that, or oh, he's a different race, like a mink or something like that. But like or part mink or something. But in Fairy Tail, like they explicitly ground it a bit by explicitly mention why he looks weird. And I just want to bring this up now because I'm going to bring this up later because there's something weird. There's weird. I don't know. It's weird later. So yeah. Anyway, I did like the Lucy fight much better. Like this might be one of my favorites so far. Honestly, Luffy versus Sherry. Did you have any specific? There's a weird part that I'm.
I wonder if it's the same thing.
Go on, because I know it is. I know it is.
Okay, so for the most part, the fight was good. There was the one part where her opponent is like, "Oh, she looks hot. Rip her clothes off."
Okay, no, we had different thoughts. That was. Oh yeah, and Taurus is like doing it eagerly, and it's like, and Lucy bitches at him, and it's like, okay, no, that was yeah, we had different parts then.
I was gonna say that was weird for like the why, like I can understand like there are certain like if it was to be sort of like you had set up earlier, like her trying to like be like she was proud of her sex appeal and trying to like weaponize it and that like coming back against her. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like it didn't need to be here.
Not I mean it kind of ties in that, but not in a real meaningful way where it's just another instance of her like sex appeal being used against her and it just like happens and it's like I don't necessarily think this works with the rest of the fight because like the weird moment I've always bitched about was actually the forced like okay, here's the sad thing, like I don't think this moment stood out to me because I'm used to it because I've already read Fairy Tail. Just saying, because this is not the last time this happens, but again the question is if it's meaningful, so I'll reconsider later in the future of the moments I'm thinking of, but for now it's like I don't see why this specific instance needed to be here. But because like the thing I've always thought was weird was the forced gate closure. I definitely don't dislike it as much in this translation because I always read the fan translation in which like Sherry says like, oh yeah, the gates have to be open between two parties, so you can't close it. But then, like, the wording here, they specifically make it seem that she's less certain. Like, she says, aren't the Golden Gates supposed to be open and closed through agreement between two parties? She says with, like, a question mark. Like, she isn't a celestial spirit mage. She only kind of knows about it. And then later she says, like, it's her failing. She didn't know that celestial spirit mages could force close the gates. And for Lucy, it's like, in order to do that, she has to be willing to fight alone, so to speak. And that's kind of how... like she does summon more spirits, like she summons Aquarius later, because like that's kind of what, like she's in a situation where she literally can't use her spirits without them being controlled. She has to fight alone, even though she's weak. And so like she kind of uses Aquarius with that in mind. And how the fight ends is it's a fist fight. Sherry's kind of knocked down to the point that Lucy was in by being up against Sherry, and they like literally just have like a fight. But Lucy's, she fights more alone, so she's stronger. Where Sherry's been like kind of like how Lucy was at the start of the series, where she's only relies on her powers, kind of. And and while Lucy's been growing, so once they sort of like are on the same level of not having powers, Lucy wins out. And I'm like, yeah, that's good. Like, look, character development. Yeah. Like, within 40 chapters, we got this actual, like, character arc here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there wasn't really... Yeah, that's cool. I didn't actually think much of the forced gate closing at all, because, like, there was also the follow-up where Aquarius just kind of left of her own accord. Yes. So, again, it's another thing where, like, there isn't a mutual agreement that, like, there's the...
Yeah, I never thought about it, because I noticed that, too, but I didn't, like, think of it, because you're right, it's the humans can force gate close, and the spirits can just close the gate whenever they feel like it. So I had seen it as
more like it's another form of like you still have to kind of like be on enough of a wavelength with that spirit that like you can have that freedom to like, no, I'm sending you back on my own, or you're going back on your own. Right. Like, so if there isn't that, so yeah, I don't know. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was fine.
And, well, again, this translation words it way better than the fan translations, which confused me more. Because I bitched about this in part 2 of the tirade, and now I'm like, oh no! Because, it makes much more sense on this reading, so yeah. And I like the moment afterwards where Urza comes in to save Lucy, and she's like, Urza, and like Urza like gives her this fucking like cold look. It's such a good expression, and Luz is just like, oh fuck, that's right.
Yeah.
It was good. And of course she tries to explain what they're doing. She tries to be the freedom, like, yeah, we gonna do this thing, but Urza's the rules. She's like, no, we're going home. This was not an officially taken mission, so yep. But which of course comes to a thing with Gray, because Gray's similar of mindset where he just wants to help the people, and he's choosing his own path. And he even says like, if you want to stab me, go ahead. But Urza gives up because she's like, fine, we'll take care of the job. Which was a good moment, because like I said, I like the conflict that Urza offers to the group. So
yeah, I did like the part where like he's looking for them, and he goes to the tent, and there's just the panel of Urza just like sitting there, like just waiting, and the other two are just like off to the side, like, oh no, we're in trouble.
Yep. So anyway, we get introduced to Zalti, who is also working with Leon, though who turns out to be Ultir in disguise. Well, Natsu busts in to fuck with them, and yeah. So here we get like I kind of like this because Natsu's fighting a random like lieutenant guy, where it's Gray who gets the final battle, because this is Gray's arc, so it makes sense that he fights like the main opponent, right? Well, I guess that kind of happened in the Duke Everlu thing too, because it was Lucy versus the Duke, where Natsu kind of fought Virgo and some random mercenaries. So it's like, I like how, you have, like, because with One Piece, I don't think this happened until fucking, like, CP9 with Spandam, where he's, like, the leader, but he's not, but Lucci's, like, the strongest enemy that Luffy fights. So, because most often it's the, the captains, the leaders who are the strongest, whereas with Fairy Tail doesn't quite have that, so, or it's not doing that exact thing, so it's neat, I think. I like it. Because maybe it's because I think about One Piece a lot, but I always think about, like, oh yeah, the strongest guy fights the main character, right? Or the leader fights the main character, so to speak, so yeah. But yeah, Natsu fights Leon a bit. He's not happy with him being so fixated on the past. Where Gray, we also get the Gray flashback, though before that he mentions that, like, Ur's still alive, because, like, he's frozen, I guess, because he hasn't really accepted Ur's death, so to speak. Like, because she's basically, like, even if she's technically alive, she's functionally dead, so, and he refuses to accept that, so yeah, he's kind of not moving on. But I don't know, what'd you think about the flashback? Because I don't think we've gotten a character flashback like this, so yet.
It was a good flashback.
Yep. It was fine. We get into Gray and and Leon, see them together learning magic, and then Deloria also agrees that she specifically states that maker magic is freedom, so themes. And then we see sacrificing herself because Gray tried to fight Deloria, didn't work out, and then sealed him away. I will say, like, they did the shonen thing because, like, this happened in Rave, and it was worse in Rave because it's where, like, the one Sky Knight guy was like, I think it was the Walrus, he was like, I killed Reisha, but it's like, what? How did you, she didn't, I don't understand. But, like, with this, it's like Leon's like, Gray, you killed Ultir, or rather, why did I say Ultir? I don't know. But at least it kind of, like, I guess it would be more accurate to say, like, you led her to her death, but it's closer. Like, at least it makes sense. But anyway, Gray is about to try to use Ice Shell on Leon, which I didn't think about. I never every time I read this, I never think about how the Moon Drip is, like, this is the island for the Moon Drip, so, like, it doesn't matter that if Gray did this, they would still just be able to free Leon, but they only mention that after the fact. But it's fine because I always forget too, so I'm like, oh yeah, that's fair. So, because yeah, Natsu stops him and he's like, what? I don't care, I want to, because yeah, Gray's just like trying to sacrifice himself pointlessly, and Natsu's like, you're just running away, he's not confronting anything or overcoming him, he's just like dying, so it doesn't do anything. And then we kind of get the final fights. I don't remember if I had as much to say about them. Have you any thoughts about them? Because, like, Zalti, aka Ultir, had some neat powers, and Natsu kind of fought him a bit.
Yeah, because he could, like, manipulate time as far as, like, how it relates to objects.
Yeah, Yeah, not people, which is why he couldn't do melt the ice, because it was used to be a
It was
person.
an interesting power because like you see him like manipulating Earth, and so first assumption probably wouldn't be, oh, he can manipulate time. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I don't have much to say about the fight because Natsu, he just beats up a bit. It happens.
yeah, and then like the
because it doesn't really.
I can't really think of much.
It doesn't really resolve because obviously like Zalti is way more powerful. Like because we find out afterwards that Altair was only using part of her power just to fuck around, pretty much, because like obviously the intent they need Natsu for some reason, and the intent wasn't to like beat him, but it was like Deloria was more important, and the fight continued, like Deloria gets freed anyway, so like beating Natsu wasn't imperative anyway, so yeah, it's fine. What about the Leon Gray fight? Did you have any thoughts about that?
I don't really know what to take away from the two hands ice is better balanced than one.
See, that actually, like, I think that kind of goes against the fight, because like you can see it as like said like, oh here, well, maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just misreading the message of the fight, because it's like obviously like what I've been taking from the arc is like they need to go forward. They need to move. They need to go beyond and Gray, he was unable to accept her death, and that kind of happens when the ice melts, and Natsu insists that he shouldn't sacrifice himself, like he's trying to be too much like her, I guess. Where like Lion wanted to surpass her, and was like, no, don't use the one-handed thing because it like somehow makes you weaker or something. And so, like, Leon was, he was kind of moving forward and doing something that she specifically said not to do, but that turns out to be wrong, so maybe I just don't understand his side in the, like, maybe he's, like, trying to go forward too much or something, like, it's supposed to be, like Gray was the one frozen and Leon was moving too much, which would make sense considering they're, like, types of magic, because Leon is dynamic style, or motion style, and Gray is, like, static style, so maybe I was just misreading it, but I'm still not quite sure what the takeaway is supposed to be, because, like, I mean, Urza does say, like, the past, move beyond the past, but I don't know. It seems weird.
Now that you bring it up that way, like, if they were described as, like, both being, like, frozen in time, but the one guy could do, like, motion magic, right? You'd think that, like, motion
kinda, like, his
forward
powers
would be, like, the... So, like, if Gray had, like, somehow figured out how to use that and beat him, I don't know.
Yeah, like, or because maybe... Like, because Lion, like, personality-wise, I feel like he was frozen. He was fixated on Like, there are other powerful mages. Like, he was, like, even when he was told, he rejected that. He was like, no, is the strongest. Like, he didn't care what other people. He was kind of rejecting reality even. And so, like, there was, I guess you could say, there's a contradiction, between him and his fighting style, because his fighting style is about motion, yet he's the one who's frozen. Yeah. Whereas Gray. But then again, Gray starts to move again, even though his style is all about being still. So that's also a contradiction. So I'm not sure. Like,
I don't know. Maybe that's kind of like the contrast is like the one who is able to like use magic to move forward is the one who gets stuck, whereas the one who has static magic is the one who's able to move forward.
See. Well, I that would have been great with your idea of Gray trying out dynamic magic, like, or swapping between the two, like, do both, like, if he swapped between the two, like, as he fought and used both, then he'd be more versatile, and he'd also be like, he'd by using his own frozen magic, he'd still be using what taught him, but by using dynamic magic as well, he'd also be moving forward from So whereas Leon kind of rejects everything that would have, I mean, maybe you could say he kind of does that because he uses like this big cannon thing. Is that dynamic or is it static? Like, because it moves, the ice moves. So is that what's supposed to be happening there?
I mean, is that the
possibly?
Is that the answer?
Like,
is the cannon? But then you think they would have explained that? I don't know.
I mean, well, because as he's summoning it, he does say like the one-handed using one-handed magic all the time like means it won't have the power at the critical times. So maybe the implication is that like this is a critical time, and now Gray is using the one-handed. No, he's using, or is he using? No, he's holding it in two hands. So I guess it would be two-handed magic. So yeah, see, it's like just a little change or a little more clarity would have made this like perfectly fine. But I feel like it's just a little clunky in its execution, and if that is the case, then maybe it muddles this message a bit, which is like a little disappointing now, because I'm like, oh, we came up with some things, but no, they don't quite work out, sadly. So
yeah, I definitely think Lucy's fight, where it just kind of ends with them like flailing around at each other. That to me felt like a more satisfying fight than these final two. But like
somehow, right.
But yeah, like I can see something in this one, but it's just like what.
I don't know. It's not quite there for me. Maybe I just haven't like framed it well enough yet, or like again, or just if there had been like one little change or one extra line of context, it would have been perfectly.
Or maybe
fine,
someone in the comments will have a better reading of it, and they'll be like, "Actually, you idiots, here's what it means."
the mega Fairy Tail fan who's been like, yeah. Because I know I have some people who like Fairy Tail on my server, so if they have insights, I would be glad to hear them. Because I'm already much more satisfied with like the sort of like character conflicts than I ever remember being with Fairy Tail for sure. So like even if like this one wasn't executed well, like even what it's trying to execute is still better than like any of Musica's fights, except for maybe the Reina one. The Reina one was fine with when he was working with her against Ogre. A bit maybe, I don't know. Only because it seemed to make it, it worked a bit better. But anyway, Deloria wakes up. He's already dead. So it's like, all of Leon's efforts to try and move forward this specific way were kind of like empty, and of course like was already dead, which Gray needed to move on from effectively, or like she's gone. Though of course he does say that, but now that they have nothing to fight about, they're kind of like now we get to the forgiveness part, which we already talked about a bit.
Yeah, I did think it was a little weird, like on top of what we already said. Like depending on where in the fight we were, or like where in the flashback we were, like Leon's personality seemed to kind of change a bit. Like before he was kind of like morally gray, then there are certain parts where he seems like, oh, he's just evil, and then there are parts where like he goes back to being sort of ambiguous.
Yeah,
and it's
because at the end there he's kind of like chilled out a bit, and he's like, well, because like I do like how he just sort of makes the like obvious like thing that I personally hadn't I forgot again, even though I've already read this material like twice, but he's like, oh yeah, we bathed in the moon drip for 3 years and we're perfectly fine, and so it's like, wait, what's up with the demons? So and things get resolved. Like I said, the forgiveness aspect is kind of weird because it's like they tried the Leon's guys tried to kill you all. No one's gonna mention that. And then destroying the moon was kind of fun, I guess. Or the barrier rather. And they were demons the whole time. But the arc is over.
Yeah, it was certainly an interesting twist to end on. Like, no, the solution was actually memory and not the other thing.
Oh yeah, I guess there was kind of like an acceptance rejection of reality kind of there, because like the demons, for their memory, they had trouble accepting things as they were. Where Leon, like he, also, he didn't want to accept. He didn't even accept that was not the best mage. So I guess that was kind of there, but contrast. So, but anyway, Gray got a scar from all the fighting on his forehead, and I think like looking at it, Urza like stopping Gray and Natsu for fighting, like because like there's a bit where like they're like quarreling a bit, and Urza's like talking to the demons. And she turns around, and they're not fighting anymore, but they're not, like, scared either. Like, just the character dynamic has changed a bit, and how they interact with each other, which is kind of weird, without, like, a reason that I can perceive. So, especially because it was kind of, like, a major aspect to how they interacted with each other before, and now it's just kind of, I don't know, maybe it'll come back again later, so, yeah. Oh, then we get a bit of they leave the island, everything's good, victory, and then we see Ultir and Sieg, where they give a bit of a cryptic bullshit. So, Sieg mentions the Wizard Saints, where it's like, oh yeah, if would have lived, she would have been a Wizard Saint, and he holds up an amulet implying that he is also a Wizard Saint. They're basically, I guess, they're like the 10 strongest wizards in the country. So for reference, as to what he's talking about, it's not super important. Oh, and of course, Ultir mentions that they are in fact the she was her daughter, because they even mentioned that during one of the flashbacks, because like Leon was like, oh, aren't I a replacement child, and like or slapped her because it's like you're Leon, not my missing daughter, and then of course because he was envious that she was picking up another disciple, or he was but they failed with Deloria, so Sieg still got sneaky evil plans. But Lucy got the key, the Sagittarius key, and they're gonna get some punishment apparently for for going on the mission, and they get back to the guild hall, and the guild hall is completely fucked up.
It is destroyed.
Yes, with a bunch of just giant iron pillars just stuck through it, and that's the cliffhanger. So that welcome to Fairy Tail. So any final thoughts on this relatively short reading? Like, we are more than 2 hours in. So we'll see how the later ones go, because you had less to say this stretch than I don't remember when you've been quieter off the top of my head. So it's been a while. So very sad. Did you have any other thoughts aside from like
I mean, yeah, I do like this introduction a little better than Rave's, but at the same time, it's nothing like super duper amazing.
Nah, I mean, I thought it was fun to kind of like think about the conflicts that I'd never really considered before. Like I said, light 5 right now with easy potential to fall. I hope I'm surprised. So yeah, next time.
There is no next time. The podcast is over. Bye.
Next time we are reading chapters 47 through 102, so a little bit longer. We'll be covering 2 arcs. So yeah, thank you for listening, as usual, and we will see you next time.